Hey, I'm Rick Coster from the Day. Welcome to what could be a most volcanic live lunch break. Today we're joined by the New York-based percussion ensemble, Percussion. And some of the so's I've seen, there's like a long accent mark so that
Yeah.
people will pronounce it correctly as opposed to saw percussion, I guess.
We'll
I don't
explain
know.
it all.
They'll explain it all. Anyway, we're privileged to have them. Anybody that just thought when you were a little kid and got a drum kit that you would have to grow up and play like Bill Ward from Black Sabbath, that's completely wrong. This is Percussion.
Cloder Farms.
Lose yourself in the possibilities for your home, yard, heart, and soul.
Come to Cloder Farms
and see what we're building for you. Offshore, out in the Sound, your island getaway awaits. Yes, Block Island beckons. With so much to do and see, a Block Island getaway is now closer than ever. Ride the high-speed Block Island Express from New London on one of 4 daily departures, where an island escape is yours at goblockisland.com. That's goblockisland.com.
So by doing the house and trade-in, you know, that we use that towards our down payment towards this condo, and it made life so much easier for us. It took all the worry out of everything.
You're watching a most astounding episode of Live Lunch Break. I am Rick Coster. We're streaming as I speak at theday.com. I hope you're so mesmerized you're not even paying attention to lunch, because we have So Percussion with us. And I have to say, guys, that first piece, as a layperson, it's so. Are you constantly doing mathematical equations in your head to keep up when there's 4 different polyrhythms going on?
A little bit. I mean, it's more that you did the mathematical equations when you were first learning the piece.
Yeah.
And then, like most music, you have to internalize it to a point where you're going on instinct. You know what I mean? Because it's going by too fast to actually do the math in your head and be like, oh, now he's there, so my 8th note is over here. It's like, whew, like you're way past that by that point. So I think we've played that piece like maybe 350 times, something like that. So there's a certain amount of instinct of, like, I know what it looks like when when Jason's stick is in a certain place. I know where mine's supposed to be. I know what it sounds like, you know, because the whole piece is all about you're playing the same music in slightly different places, you know?
Even I think I was able to pick that up, and it reminded me in a way, the way you guys ebbed and flowed or dropped out and come back in. It's almost like the jazz template where you go around in a circle, except there's probably not that much room for improvisation, if any.
Not really. I mean, the one thing that we can be flexible about in that piece is, like, there's a certain range within range of number of times we repeat motives that we're allowed to choose. Like, I can do 8 to 12 times on this one, so I might do 9, I might do 10. And then the actual number of times we repeat in general in the piece is a little bit flexible. So we're not counting. People have asked us before, like, are you counting like 1,000 repetitions? And it's like, no, not at all, because that's horrible. So the piece does have some room for that, but it is pretty set in order of, it's completely set what we have to do. But actually, I think a lot of times when people are getting together in a jazz setting, they often pre-plan like what order people are going to take their solos in and stuff like that.
I'm speaking with Adam, along with Eric, Josh, and Jason from So Percussion out of New York. They're going to be at Connecticut College tomorrow night, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I think, without getting too embroiled in the minutia, which fascinates me of how you guys do that, but how do 4 guys, presumably college pals or whatever, embark on a course that lands you here all these years later? I made a joke at the outset of the show about every kid gets a drum kit and thinks they're going to be Ginger Baker. How did this happen?
Yeah, I mean, we of course all had somewhat similar backgrounds growing up in that we did public school music, like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, stuff like that. But what brought us all together, actually, we were down the road at Yale. We did graduate school together at Yale. And it just so happened that at that time, and still now, there's a really great teacher there named Robert Van Cise, who made a whole career out of playing solo percussion and chamber music percussion. And most chamber music for percussion is from the last 100 years in like classical music and Western music. And he just got us all together at the school and was like giving us assignment after assignment of learning a piece you're going to hear later, drumming, and some music by John Cage and Yannis Xenakis and lots of other people like that. And we had...
interrupt you.
Yeah, please.
Didn't you write your doctoral dissertation on Yannis?
Yes, I am super impressed. You are like my new best friend. I don't think people I've known for a decade know that I wrote my... Okay,
I did know that.
I did, yes.
And I interrupted you, but you were saying.
But with the greatest kind of flattery you could imagine. So we were in school together doing these pieces, and it just gradually evolved in a similar sense that lots of bands do, even garage bands and stuff, where you put your stuff together and you're like, let's try it outside. For us, it was like, let's get a gig at an art museum. There was a very early gig at the Hartford Art Museum, right, Jay? Yeah, Real Artways, really early on, like when we were just starting out. And I know that you know, even when we just started playing in New York, there was a little festival here or a thing there, and it just so happened that the stuff that we were doing seemed to be striking a nerve with some people at that moment, about 10, 12 years ago. People seemed excited and ready for some of this stuff. And the Steve Reich piece, we played Music for Piece of Wood. Of course, his music has been around for 40, almost 50 years now. So there had been a building excitement around that stuff that he was doing.
Minimalism.
And minimalism.
Right.
And we really took that on as a cause. We really love his music, his percussion music. And so, yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to talk a lot, probably more than we should, for you guys to keep musical momentum, but I'm just fascinated by this.
Thanks.
But let's play some more.
Great.
And we'll talk again. And this is So Percussion on Live Lunch Break.
Offshore, out in the Sound, your island getaway awaits. With so much to do and see, a Block Island getaway is now closer than ever. Where an island escape is yours at GoBlockIsland.com.
So literally, we're changing deeds. You're using your house at an agreed upon number towards a down payment for the purchase here. It couldn't be much easier, really.
Come to Cloder Farms.
We believe in the art of handcrafted furniture. Workbench built in the USA to your specifications. The Cloder Farms Keystone Collection. Furniture handmade just for you. And see what we're building for you.
Hey, I'm Rick Coster from theday.com, and we're enjoying listening to Percussion, and this is one of the most amazing things I've ever got to see, and we've had a lot of variety on this show. You alluded in the first interview segment about Steve Reich and John Cage and Paul Lansky, I think, and in that context, you're talking about pre-existing pieces or pieces that maybe you guys commissioned. Right. How does someone call Pierre Boulez on the phone or whatever and say, I want to do something for my percussion?
Regarding Pierre Boulez, I don't know. But in terms of some of the folks that we've worked with, it's often been a pretty organic process. And I think we learned that a lot of folks who we held in very high esteem as being very famous and established were more approachable than we had imagined, because even though they were rock stars to us, they were all people who love music, who love people that are excited about music. And if you were really excited about their music, that was especially good for them. And also, I would say that when we were starting out 10 years ago, certainly before that, and this has started to change, there was a sense in the world of like conservatory, learning how to perform on all of these different instruments, that new music was almost kind of this marginal activity for a lot of people. And the canon of classical music was where everybody's main effort sort of lay. And so a lot of composers, I think, for a long time were pretty frustrated. It was hard to find. Of course, there have been many people for years who specialized in contemporary music, but I think fewer than there were composers who had great stuff to offer. And so I think as a young group, we approached David Lang, the founder of the Bang on a Can Festival, also a Yale grad. And he was way higher up on the ladder than we were, but we were like, man, we are so excited about your music. We love your percussion music. He wrote a percussion solo called Anvil Chorus back in the 90s, I believe, maybe 80s, I guess 80s. And we were just pumped. I mean, we were just ready to go. And I think for him, that was like, all right, I might get a pretty good investment, a pretty good version of my music done by these young guys who are really excited about it. And so I think we didn't even realize until we got into it how much of a currency that was with composers, the idea that, when a composer writes for a major orchestra, sometimes they get a 45-minute rehearsal on it. They might have been writing it for 6 months. Yeah. And to have a group be like, we're going to spend like a year and a half on the hardest piece you can imagine writing for us, he was into that. And add to that the fact that for us as a percussion group, necessity is the mother of invention. I mean, we had a small body of repertoire already written for what we do that we loved by Steve Reich, John Cage, but also we needed a lot of new stuff to happen. So for us, it was coming out of the gates and being like, we want to be a percussion group, and we think that means we need and want a lot more music than we already have. And a lot of groups aren't in that position. A string quartet, you could spend the whole rest of your life playing already written music for string quartet, and it's great music, and never run out, and still have 100 more lifetimes left to learn more stuff. And we felt like we weren't in that position, but the good thing about that is it meant we had to come out of the gates with that energy, just being like, will you write for us? Will you write for us?
Well, not only that, but you segued into writing your own material. Yeah. And was that something that you felt like you had the cachet at a certain point? Well, we can still commission works or do established works, but people are going to respect this. And was it nerve-wracking that?
Yeah, I mean, not sure how savvy we were about whether we had cachet or not. I just think we were excited about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and I think that it's
very well respected.
Well, that's great to hear you say that. I mean, I think that we, sure, it was a little scary because we go to music school, you study the masters. Even if they're living masters like Steve Reich, you're like, wow, you hold them in such high esteem. you start doing your own stuff. And really, Jason has written a lot of the music that the group has done. And
Right.
the stuff we were doing just now on that set was music from a project called Amid the Noise that Jason wrote. And the first piece is called September. It's all about sort of ambient sounds and things colliding in cool
Very
ways.
autumnal.
Yeah, yeah. And then the second piece is called Life is blank in parentheses. So not life is the word blank, which is kind of dark, but life is fill in the blank, you might call it.
Got it.
You know, that music bears some resemblance to some other music that we like and are influenced by. But for us, like, experimentation just became the kind of thing that we wanted to keep doing and were inspired by. And those guys, Steve Reich, John Cage, that's essentially what they did, is they just kept going out on a limb and saying, what if I try this? What if I try that? And you get a little less scared when your models are people who were so brave to strike out on their own paths.
And they happen to coincide with a sort of a cultural art explosion where people are a lot more willing to accept that or have it part of a gallery show or even a party or whatever.
Well, they paved the way. I mean,
Yeah.
Steve Reich premiered 4 organs at Carnegie Hall, and there was an actual riot. People were, like, one woman ran down to the stage and yelled, "I confess!" And, like, you know, the players couldn't hear each other, so they were yelling the bar numbers at the top of their lungs. We don't actually have to deal with that.
Right.
Like, if people don't like what we do, they generally leave us alone. We've had a couple of small, maybe near riots, but for the most part, not really. It's like if people don't like it, they just kind of go do something else. So guys like that, they got to pave the way in a culture that was much more like, what are you doing?
Right.
We don't really have to do that as much. We have a lot more room.
Cool. Well, we've got So Percussion with us, and going to persuade them to play 1, possibly 2 more pieces. So thanks a lot for being here, guys.
Thank you. This is the first half of the first part of Steve Reich's drumming.
it's pretty clear that we had something to offer that other agents' listings did not have to offer. We offered them the opportunity to sell their home, get their home sold in a very slow, tough market.
Come to Cloder Farms.
Lose yourself in the possibilities for your home, yard, heart, and soul.
Come to Cloder Farms.
And see what we're building for you. Offshore, out in the Sound, your island getaway awaits. Yes, Block Island beckons. With so much to do and see, a Block Island getaway is now closer than ever. Ride the high-speed Block Island Express from New London on one of 4 daily departures, where an island escape is yours at GoBlockIsland.com. That's GoBlockIsland.com.
I hope you're watching this. This is an astonishing thing going on here at Live Lunch Break. We have Percussion, very hypnotic, astonishingly melodic, given that there's not a lot of melodic. It's percussion, right? But I'm Rick Coster. This is Live Lunch Break. I'm befuddled over what I'm watching and hearing. You guys are amazing.
Thanks.
I have to ask you this, given that you're all conservatory trained. I grew up in the South, and like if you're in Austin, there's just this constant sound of a Texas shuffle, which is admittedly a rudimentary rhythmic form, but it's almost part of the beat of the streets. And certainly when I was in New Orleans, the second line rhythms are everywhere. Man. They're omnipresent, and it sort of becomes, at the risk of sounding corny, part of you, or
totally.
So, do you guys have any sort of indigenous young experiences with that sort of thing, or did you just come at it strictly? Obviously, there's affection there, but was it just clinical, or how?
Oh, I mean, it's a little bit different for each of us, and I can tell you especially, Josh, the guy with the beard over here, who was over here, Josh studied in Trinidad for a while, steel drums.
Oh, steel drums, sure.
And so in addition to playing steel drums really well, he's really conversant in the various kind of rhythmic aspects of that music, and it's really cool to hear him talk about it, to see him step in with a steel band when we're in a town and show them how to do all of the stuff. And I know it affects the way that he plays, the way that he feels. Time. Jason studied drum set for a long time. He studied with for a little bit with Steve Gadd, Paul Simon's drummer, and really great drummer, and many other wonderful people too. And so he has a whole vocabulary of sort of rhythmic, internalized rhythmic stuff. And in my case, and I think somewhat in Eric's case, both of us started playing piano when we were younger, and I was very steeped in classical music, and so I came at percussion. Yeah, I played drum set from a young age, but also I was very, very, very influenced by classical music, piano, choral music, stuff like that. I'm sure in some way that informs what I do here. But so I think for us it's kind of cool to see that we have some different influences in the mix. The conservatory experience kind of gelled some of that together so that we could play a piece like this with a sort of uniform interpretation, but we're also all definitely bringing different things to the table.
So when you decide to do a piece like what you just did, is it fluidly instinctual which guy is probably going to do which part, or do you sometimes cross it up just to make you do something you ordinarily wouldn't do, and that sort of thing? Or
a little of both. I mean, this piece we've been playing it since the very beginning of the group, and actually we are not the same 4 people that founded the group. Jason founded the group in 1999 with some other guys that were at Yale at the time. I came in soon after that, and then Josh and Eric joined along the way. So actually drumming kind of became an interesting kind of rotation system depending on if somebody had left. When somebody comes in, it's like, well, what part is missing now? You know, so it's like somebody leaves, and then either you say, okay, now you play that part, or somebody be like, oh, for like 5 years I've wanted to play this part over here, and then you'd rotate around, and then you know. So Eric's the most recent member of the group, and he has this part where he comes in and plays these really important, impactful lines that happen, but he hasn't yet had a chance to be like, hey, that part you've been playing for 5 years, could I do that, and could we rotate? But I'll bet if he did, we would be like, yeah, let's try it out. With a piece like this works really well. Some of our other repertoire is more personal to us as players, where maybe Jason's playing a drum set part that I would never feel like it's really my voice. I would not really want to play that part. But piece like drumming, anybody could kind of play any of these parts.
So tomorrow night you're playing at Connecticut College here in New London. That'll be Friday night if you happen to see this later. And you're on the road, brief tour right now. I don't know how much equipment you guys carry with, but this is just a minimal representation.
This is our portable show,
What governs what's on the set list any given night? Does it change from night to night? Or?
A bit. I mean, we try really hard. Like this weekend is Connecticut College and also the MFA in Boston, Museum of Fine Arts, and also Mount Holyoke. Since it's 3 nights in a row, we tried really hard to make sure we were playing the same music every night, because for a percussion quartet, a different program means a different stage setup, a different set of instruments, different voices.
Do you have a road crew?
Sometimes, not so much on this one. You know, Jason's
Rob taking care of you there at Con College?
Jason's 2-year-old Elsie is not quite old enough yet to move our gear. But
drive the truck.
but she's along with us. But yeah, whereas with the string quartet, we know some string quartets like the Kronos Quartet, you know. They tour around with, I've heard as many as like 40 pieces in their back pocket ready to go on a given night, because it's just throwing a different piece of music on the stand. They're always playing cello, they're always playing. For us, that's a different kind of challenge.
Definitely.
So this whole weekend and tomorrow night, we're playing some of these more portable pieces like Steve Reich's drumming, and we're also playing this big piece that a guy named Dan Truman wrote for us called Neither Anvil Nor Pulley. And it's sort of a man-machine exploration on a pretty epic scale. That's a lot of gear, a lot of cables. Like you come and you'll see the stage will already be set up with lots of drums and laptops and all kinds of crazy stuff.
That's fun. So tomorrow night is at Con College. What time? And
8 p.m.
And is that in Cummings?
Evans.
He said, talking to someone invisible
Evans,
off stage.
Evans Hall.
That's Rob Richter from Con College over there. So, okay.
And I wrote it down to be studious. onstage.concall.edu. You can check it out for tickets.
That sounds good. I cannot tell you how much it's fun it has been, and educational and hypnotically rhythmic to have Percussion with us. Can you do one more quick
We're going to do one more piece. Also Steve Reich, the guy writes very portable music, piece called Clapping Music.
Hey, while you guys are getting up here, I got a question, and this is not in reference to anybody particular that you have commissioned works from, but say you commissioned a work and you got it, and the 4 of you looked at each other and went, God, that sort of sucks. Does that ever happen? I'm just kidding.
Here's what I'll say. No. Actually, we feel really strongly about this. I think at this point, almost everybody, if not everybody we work with, we have a long investment process with the work that they do. And so probably the point at which we were like, I'm not so sure we're communicating here, would have happened long before. It's like we just get the score in the mail and go, oh my gosh. So
you know I was joking.
Well, I know you were joking, but I also want to be very honest about
I appreciate it.
That's over the years we've really gotten to that. It feels really good.
Thank you very much, Adam. Thank you, Eric, Josh, Jason. This is Percussion tomorrow night at Con College. Be there.